All right, well, good morning. Welcome to the Filecoin Plus Notary Governance meeting. This is the first one of 2022, and it is January 11th, and we are gonna get right into it. Just gonna make sure that I can add anybody who joins. Just a quick housekeeping. Sorry to start this after recording. Galen, can you see anybody joining the meeting or Caitlin to add them in, or should I just monitor that?
I don't know that I am a co-host.
All right, it looks like I can add them. I just added Eric, so we should be good.
Yeah.
Sorry for that. We'll just carry right into it. All right, so this is January 2022. Wow, it's not scary to say that. So here's the big points on the agenda. We're going to walk through the introductions. So you're just kind of a recap of who the team is. And if you're new, give you a chance to say hi, a very high level of the metrics, and take a look at what we did in the last 2 weeks. And then take a look at the activity, what open issues we have to work on. And then we had some community issues to flag for you, new FIPs, new Slingshot Restore, and then some community discussion that you flagged for us in the GitHub repo. So with that, let's take a look at saying hello. Deep, do you want to kind of go first?
Hey everybody, I'm Deep. I think most of you, at least the ones in this call, have definitely interacted with me before. Great to see you all again. For those of you watching the recording, I have been working on Filecoin Plus for about slightly over a year now. Excited to get into 2022 and have a strong year with all of you in terms of maturing the program and a bunch of interesting ideas that people have brought up, especially towards the end of the year last year. So pretty excited to integrate that and continue scaling the program up more. I initially this year want to be a little bit more focused on like data cap in general, its presence, its flow, allocations, and the general client verification side of things. And with that as well, including like auditing and ensure that there's no abuse of the system. Galen, do you want to say hi?
I suppose. Yeah, similarly, I think a lot of you guys know me. I'm Galen with Filecoin Foundation. I've been with Filecoin Foundation since June, working on Filecoin Plus. And my primary focus at this point is really around large data sets and trying to unblock that process, make it faster, more efficient, and higher trust. And so leveling up how we can get that enterprise level data cap pipeline going.
I'll say a wonderful hello. My name's K-Ray, Kevin Ray. I just go by K-Ray since there's so many Kevins. I think my role coming onto the team, I'm relatively new. This is like my second or third month, is looking at how we can strengthen the ties between the community, improve the communication, make sure that we're giving you like systems that work, whether it's the Notary Elections or whether it's this meeting or whether it's like speeding up processes as we look at it. So still relatively new, still getting on board, looking forward to it as we go on. So with that, let's see if there's anybody else that would like to say hi. So if this is your first time on the call, feel free to come into the chat and you can come through and add your name, say hello, where you're from, what you may be working on. If you have been here for a while and this is like your 30th call, you might have someone new on the phone. Feel free to just introduce yourself if you're looking to kind of expand that. We just definitely wanted to give you a chance to kind of introduce yourself and say more. And at the end of the call, we'll have time for community discussion as we go through it. All right, I'm going to turn the floor over to Galen, and he's going to kind of walk us through what our metrics looks like.
Yes, thank you. So using our DMOB interplanetary dashboard here, we're still working on, cleaning this up, getting some updates. As we've mentioned a couple times, we started a public Slack channel. If you are building a dashboard, if you have questions or ideas about dashboards, you can, let me just grab that channel name and drop that here. It's build-plus-dashboards or hyphens, depending on how you want to say it. Feel free to go there, ask questions. If you see a stat, sometimes across these different dashboards, things are getting calculated in a couple of different ways. And so it's great to just have more open dialogue about how did somebody reach a certain number. So looking at this, our average time to data cap is about 3 hours faster from end of December to where we are. Great, want to continue seeing that number going down. First response from notaries is 5 hours faster. Still driving that down, still seeing the average time being around 5 days. So trying to get that closer to sort of a 3-day turnaround time. The total amount of data cap that has gone to clients, not a huge shift in the client flow here. So still sort of looking, we've had a few new large data sets get activated. I think we're currently at about 84 with 7 petabytes total stored through Filecoin Plus. So pretty happy with those like very high level metrics and some of these numbers that are trending in the right direction. So from there, I think we'll talk about sort of the direct notary activity.
Hey, thanks, Galen. So I can kind of speak to this, and I just want to say props right off the bat. It's been a busy time period, especially for the holidays in the States with everything going on. We've had a lot of large data sets. We've had a lot of applications. So we appreciate the timeliness and the effort looking into it. It kind of really was a lot right around Christmas. But if we take a look at this, I think what I wanted to show is, yeah, we have 34 direct applications, and 33 of those are those large data sets that are awaiting signature. So if you have bandwidth after this call and you want to get on, we have a lot of them that they're waiting for the reviews. And if you look here on this chart on the right, this is kind of that rough draft, geographic, actually Jurassic state of what that leaderboard that we talked about is coming, where we can actually see like how many of these were granted and then what was the time frame. So props, because as Galen was saying, the average time frame on this is around that 5-day mark. And so what we're doing is we're trying to constantly see what we can do in the program to help get that time granted down from like some of these really high numbers down to like, cool, we're getting back to these folks within a couple of days or under a week. So with all these new applications coming on, it's a busy time. So the program is doing well. We're really looking for feedback from you on ways that we could make this go faster. And we might be reaching out on like, hey, if you have bandwidth, we literally have 31 of these that are ready for your input. And then we might need anything. So with this, I'll kind of pause for a minute. Galen or Deep, if there's anything else you want to add, just feel free to jump in or just give a thumbs up. Rock, rock, rock. So here's something that's coming. We talked about this in the Slack, and this is kind of the first mention of it. The election cycle, which makes us all happy because it's never a dull moment when it comes to this. So we're getting ready for the next round of 2022 notary elections to come up. And this is just that heads up it's coming, and looking for feedback, because the tentative suggested schedule that we're looking at is this. Applications would open up on February 21st. That's about 5 weeks from now. And the reason for that time is that lets us really get feedback from you to make sure that this time works. And then it lets us kind of build up on like what we're actually going to be putting together as like the expectations for the notaries going forward in 2022 and making sure that aligns. So once we give 2 weeks for those applications to open up, we're going to give another 2 weeks for all the scoring and additional follow-up. So if there's questions, we need to rate these and kind of take a look and make sure we have the right people in the right slots at the right time. 2 weeks to go through that. And then we'll announce pending feedback March 22nd. So that's what we have tentative. I'm going to open up a GitHub repo shortly after this call, probably tomorrow, to let everything settle, and really looking for your feedback to make sure that this works. This is appropriate, not too truncated, and all set to go. One quick note, just to always point out that if you're a notary with existing allocations and you're not seeking additional data cap, you don't need to reapply. So this is just if you want to keep going in the program. And so if you have any questions on this at the end of the call when we have open discussion, we're happy to open it up. Also, feel free to put it in chat, and then that way we can make sure that we can get your questions. So if you have any questions about the notary process and the elections coming up, put it in chat. And we could also flag it during our open discussions later. All right, with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to our special guest lecturer, Caitlin, to talk to us about FIP.
Cool, thank you, K-Ray. Yeah, I've popped into this meeting before, but for those of you whom I've never met before, again, my name is Caitlin, and I work at the Filecoin Foundation, and it's my job to handle all things related to FIPs. So we are looking forward to our upcoming network upgrade, which is going to happen on March 1st. And I'm really excited to begin this last call process for some of the FIPs that we're hoping to be able to incorporate during that upgrade period. So fortunately, this is sort of a smaller upgrade, I suppose you can think about it in certain ways, in the sense that we do only have 2 FIPs that are up for community consideration. So if you are sort of loosely familiar with the FIPs process, you'll know that these are drafts that are created by community members, usually over many months. And the last call process is the final sort of step through that we need in order to ensure that there are no outstanding risks, concerns, issues, or anything else that community members have with the adoption of a proposed network change. So with that, again, there are 2 up for final consideration right now, and I do just want to make sure we call your attention to them so that you can review them and weigh in, ask whatever questions you have, etc. The first one I'm going to call attention to is Snap Deals. This is a FIP that has been worked on for many, many months now, so you may have heard about it before, especially if you ever end up involved in any of the storage provider working groups or following sort of their communication channels in Slack. And this is a one message protocol that actually changes the way that sectors are sealed so that committed capacity sectors can be upgraded to actually hold client data. Nothing else about the sector type has changed. It does not allow you to move data between sectors. It has nothing to do with sector sealing times. But fortunately, it does allow you to take any committed capacity sectors that you already have and that you've already gone through the sealing process with and upgrade them relatively quickly so that you can accept new client data without having that sort of sealing latency that we've come to expect with the network. The other is the data cap management FIP, and this one was actually authored by Deep. So Deep, do you want to give us some details about what this seeks to do?
Totally. So we've been talking about this one a few times over the last several governance calls as well. So for the usual suspects and for those that have been here before, there shouldn't be any surprises. But we did have one change, so I do want to highlight that. Before we dig into that, a quick overview for those of you that haven't heard about it. This FIP was primarily aimed to create a path to remove data cap from a client. So this was done for 2 reasons. One was for inaction and inactivity. And in the case that like accounts accumulate data cap and do nothing with them over a period of time. So as a way to reduce network risk or accumulation risk, we wanted to have an option where people could, like participants or stakeholders in the community, could find a way to remove the data cap given to a client address. And the second was in terms of like an actual consequence for fraudulent use of data cap or abuse of the Filecoin Plus system. So if it is clear that a client is misusing it, then we should have some lever that we can pull as a community to ensure that the client can't continue to do that or is less likely to be a repeat offender. And so that's the sort of the driving thing behind this, like adding a function called remove data cap from a client address. And the only big change that I want to highlight is when we were talking about this at the end of the last year, we wanted to have a combination of notary and root key holder signatures. And so that was the proposal put forth was basically two notary signatures and 1 root key holder signature would be enough to remove data cap from a client. However, upon a lot of like discussion with the L1 protocol design team, what they came back with was basically instead of having an individual root key holder tracked, we should just have the root key holder multi-sig on it, similar to the way in which we have root key holder multi-sigs on notary create actions. And so even though this is a little bit conservative upfront, it does fall more in line with the way in which we've structured actor interactions for general like Filecoin Plus on behalf of the root key holder set of folks. And so it doesn't like violate any of the core tenets of the design. It's still in line with the principles of the design of this solution. But net, what that means is it's going to be 2 notary signatures and 2 root key holder signatures because a multi-sig on the root key holder threshold is still, the threshold on the root key holder multi-sig is still 2. And so that's been the only change so far. It looks like there's been pretty good progress on the design and implementation front, and hopefully we'll have some great updates once the bigger network upgrades land in the coming month.
Great, thanks, Deep. Yeah, so if you are able to review the slides after the call today, you'll see that there's 2 links available for each of the individual FIPs that are being proposed. The first one will actually bring you to the draft FIP itself. So this is where you can see full spec, change motivation, simple English details about what would actually change and how it would work within the network. And that second link under discussion post is where you can go to register your support or disagreement for the proposal, ask questions, etc. Because we are in this last call period, I can assure you that that discussion post is monitored by myself and many others very, very closely. GitHub is actually the best place for you to register any kinds of concerns, et cetera, that you may have, whatever shape it may take, and actually get a resolution to that very quickly. If this is the first time you're kind of engaging with this process, or if you don't frequently dabble in governance, do know that the way the last call process operates is that we have 2 weeks right now. So that window will end on Monday, January 24th, which I will add in the chat after I'm done talking. And at that point, we will look to ensure that there have been no new, significant, or previously unaddressed concerns brought up by any community member about either of these proposals. If there have, we will address them publicly and openly with the person who raised them and potentially extend that last call period to see whether or not A, this is something we can address prior to the network upgrade, or B, this is something we need to reconsider and this is not a FIP that's ready for on-chain acceptance. But otherwise, in that period of time, we also have all of our implementation teams doing their testing. They've also tested this and do know in general that although last call is sort of the last step of the FIP process, this does represent sort of the culmination of many months of security auditing, testing, technical feasibility reviews, et cetera, and that these FIPs are considered complete as is right now. Cool. So with that, are there any questions I can answer for any of you about either of these FIPs, the process, et cetera? All right. Again, review these. Let us know what you think by January 24th. If you have any questions or additional follow-up after this meeting, you're always welcome to reach out to me on Slack. I'll add my Slack username also in the chat, or you can just tag me in the Fil FIPS channel and Filecoin project Slack as well. It's pretty easy to find me there. Cool, thanks.
Galen?
Yes, awesome. So another thing proposing, not a FIP here, but still important. We've been talking about this a number of times. This proposal 345 LDN allocation step increase. So a number of clients have expressed that the runway is not long enough. So this is what we consider to be a low technical lift and low risk to basically just add 2 more allocation calculations, not changing the first 3 at all. So it would still be 5% or 50% weekly, but just getting it so that the clients that are acting in good faith and making those multiple allocations have the ability to get to 800% weekly data cap. So pausing here, we would really like to push this in the next 2 weeks. Have not gotten any comments in that issue. Kind of posted in the chat here. We just do like a quick question, concern, show of support from the people on the call. Thumbs up, thumbs down, react G's. I've got a +1 from Caitlin, +1 from Fabri, +1 from Deep. Eric's giving it claps. Faye is in favor of the change. Saki's in favor. Not hearing any dissenting opinions, so that's great. If you do have questions about it, please go post in the issue. We will probably not discuss this again at another governance call. We will probably close this out by the end of the week if we don't hear any major concerns, and roll it out and implement it. And we'll notify people in the Slack channel, and we'll update the README as well. So that's that. Moving fast.
Mr. Deep, would you like to tell us about this? Please.
My unmute button. Thanks so much. Hey folks, many of you are already aware of the Slingshot Restore program, and several of you have already seen a lot of data cap applications come in for it. If you want to learn more about the general program, I would say watch the recording of the last governance call where we went more in depth with this. But I did want to give an update without taking too much time. Where we're at with it right now is basically we've been making substantive progress. Several clients are doing a combination of verified and unverified deals, or doing only verified deals. The main determinant for that actually tends to be whether or not the storage provider has enough fill to take on verified sectors so that they can provide the collateral for it. But in general, it does seem to be a popular option. And so a lot of people are able to go get data cap and then store useful, valuable, open public data sets onto the network at an unprecedented pace. Like, this is the fastest we're working towards data onboarding onto the Filecoin network in general. So lots of really good learnings from that just as a process, and something that we should probably think about leveraging in the Filecoin Plus ecosystem overall as we think about client onboarding and client success later this year. Other than that, clients continue to be held to a very high standard and are able to comply with it. Some interesting things that could be interesting to think about from a Filecoin Plus like data cap distribution perspective as well is that with some amount of KYC, we're basically testing for at least 3 storage provider entities, groups, or interrelated organizations in any way, crossing 5 cities with the replicas. So 5 individual data centers that are in 5 different cities that are then spread out across at least 3 countries and at least on 2 continents. So we've got a lot of combinations of Oceania, Europe, Asia, and NA, and then even within those continents, lots of presence of like specific countries where we see a lot of traction and availability of high quality storage providers. We're working, or what we're expecting is that probably by mid to end of Feb, it'll be like 5-ish petabytes onboarded onto the network, which is pretty awesome. For context, past Slingshot phases used to operate around, or actually a little bit less than that, on a per like 8-ish week cadence. So this is a little bit quicker. Plus, we're stress testing the network and also seeing a lot more higher quality storage services and relationships being formed between clients and storage providers that should hopefully benefit client deal brokering and client support, client tooling to be built and made available for Filecoin Plus clients in the future as well. In terms of next steps, the first thing is Kerry already pulled this up on his second tab, but one client is currently awaiting signatures. We just need 1 signature for that as well, I think, or maybe we need 2, I don't remember now. But if you're a notary and have the time, please go check this out. Definitely working closely with them and ensuring that they're being held to the same standard. So yeah, 2 signatures required on this one. Thanks, Galen. So if you've got the time to take a look, would greatly appreciate it so we can unblock them. They'll be storing at least 1 unique 100 terabyte data set 5 times, but they're also requesting additional ones. And so it'll probably end up being at least 1 petabyte from this client specifically. And if you go back to the slide, Kerry, a couple other things that I want to call out is that I think we in general are seeing a lot more LDN applications that came in the last like 4-ish weeks, even though it was over the holidays. I think some of it is because people are seeing a lot of momentum in the LDN process, especially for Slingshot Restore applications. So if you're a notary signing this stuff, please keep an eye out. We have like an official Excel sheet with participants on it that I try to keep an eye out on and update daily or every other day or so. So if you don't see a name on there or an address on there, don't feel like you have to sign it, because it's likely that people are pretending to participate or optimistic about participating and preemptively going to get data cap, which is not a bad thing necessarily, but then we do end up in a situation where clients have data cap and then are not participating in this restore program. And so in that case, I'm also looking forward to that FIP finally landing so that we can correct for some of these cases where people ended up dropping out of the program as well. And so we'll have to do some housekeeping probably once that FIP lands. The last thing I wanted to call out is that we're getting a lot of general data points on time to data cap when it comes to the LDN process. So we're hopefully going to start aggregating statistics on that, especially with the restore program. It's showing where the various bottlenecks are. And so I'm excited to walk through some of the takeaways as it relates to the Filecoin Plus client onboarding experience. And we've also gotten a lot of like indirect feedback from the clients participating in Restore through or in the way of the questions that people are asking and the way in which they've understood the process or are not understood the process. And so I'm looking forward to sort of sharing some more specific and concrete takeaways, probably not at the next governance call, but the one after that, so that we have some tactical takeaways that we can work on as a community. If you have any questions on this anytime, or if you're a notary and you want to talk to me about a client that's applying for data cap that claims to be in Restore, my DMs are always open. But I would also recommend you just drop that in the Filecoin Plus channel. Better to do this stuff always in public and make sure people are looped in. Faye, yes, there was definitely some drama about data cap. Let's chat about that for a second. So just for context, one client claimed to be participating in Restore, was not at that point participating in Restore, but got data cap preemptively. Then upon being, publicly mentioned that they're not yet in Restore, they changed their application to say just Slingshot, and they are now participating in Slingshot 2.7, which is fine. But then they were added to Restore, which is happening in like a parallel timeline. And so instead of reapplying that data cap to the Restore data set, they went and applied for another LDN to go and get data cap for Restore. And so that was the resolution of it. Is basically the client now has two LDN applications, one specifically for Restore, one for just in general Slingshot. And for the Restore one, that's the one where I'm ensuring that they're being held to an extremely high standard. Faye, you are one of the clients. You know how we meet every week. We've been discussing and ensuring that the replicas are actually being distributed correctly and people are processing data in a way that it's useful. So that's the one I'm willing to stake my reputation on and say, yes, we're likely to see good use of data cap there. For the regular Slingshot one, that one goes back to the sort of default status we've had, which is notaries, you should decide on a case-by-case basis if you'd like to support that client and support their particular methodology for processing and storing the data on the network. So hopefully no more drama there, and things will get resolved and we'll proceed in a productive way. I also spoke a little bit too fast there. I apologize. I'm just fresh off the coffee.
Sweet. I think we'll keep the questions going in the chat and come back to that if we need. Next was the community discussion. So we had an issue that was raised in the GitHub repo in preparation for this meeting. And this came over from Factor 8 Solutions, Patrick over here. And so essentially the question was the possibility of a second tier. So summarizing this would be like hand out data to their project's users. I'm curious if anybody on the call, I don't know if Patrick's able to join us. I don't think so. Patrick, were you here? I'm just misreading your name. Patrick, read on the line. Yeah, I don't think you are.
I thought I saw them, but then they may have had to drop.
It's okay. Then Patrick, if you're watching this video, hopefully we do this justice. Galen, Deep, did you want to kind of add any more flavor on Patrick's stead to this?
Deep.
Yeah, happy to. So this is not dissimilar in some ways to the proposal that Meg put forth like several months ago, where she talked about service levels for notaries that want to participate at different tiers or have different expectations. Patrick was coming at it with some similar implications, but definitely some differences as well, and inspiration from a different project that he linked as well. But the general idea, at least from my understanding of it, is effectively that there's a model in which notaries can interact with the Filecoin Plus system that has multiple tiers in it. So you have like the generic notary behavior that you have today, where you have in the flow, a client comes into the network, a client handles all of their deal making as far as the Filecoin Plus system like cares about it, and requests a data cap from an existing notary, and a notary provides data cap to them. We then introduced the second thing called an LDN, and the type of notary that participates in the LDN is typically the same as the notary that participates in direct client applications. And so Meg was coming from it at the perspective of like, notaries might have different expectations and might participate at different points in the funnel or be engaged in different ways, from like how many hours are you spending, how engaged are you in the system. And Patrick is effectively thinking about like changing the definition and the scope of the notary to also include deal broking services, or services that are providing tooling for clients that do the deal making on their behalf. So they have a high degree of KYC about their client, for example. So some of these are paid services. And maybe it'd be good to hear from Anya about Textile as well, because this is probably a good example of a candidate for this. But these are services that often have data about their client, have disproportionate knowledge about the actions that the client want to take without needing to do that in a public way or needing to expose that to everybody, and can oftentimes ensure like the principles of the Filecoin Plus overall data cap distribution philosophy are being met, in that there's often like storage provider matching being done by these services, or selection being done, or replica distribution being done on behalf of the client, which then ensures that data cap is being distributed either in a geographical manner or across different storage providers and different storage provider entities. And so in the flow that I was just describing, effectively, this kind of notary, I would imagine, would be much more automated and would sit where the client sits, as opposed to necessarily like off of it, where the client sort of breaks away from the natural deal making path to come and get data cap, to return to the path to then make deals with it. But instead, the service or the tools that clients use to make deals themselves give them data cap as those deals are being made. And so an example would be like the Textile bid bot or estuary becoming a notary and saying, since I have disproportionate knowledge about these clients, and I know the kinds of deals that they're going to make, and I can enforce a high quality and of compliance, a high degree of compliance or high quality of deal making on the network, then grant power to these services to effectively become notaries in the system and award their data cap allocation that they're given to their own clients, and then publish some sort of report or statistic in a public way so that we can continue to ensure that it's auditable and transparent. One flag that I have here is that today, most of these services all make deals using the same client address. So their needs are being met by something like LDN. And for them, it's probably more pertinent to ensure that we can solve the scalability and performance issues for LDNs, where things move quicker and things move at a higher rate, such as the issue that Galen was specifically talking about like maybe 15 minutes ago. But as we move towards the world of supporting, like bringing your own client address to a tool, or like managing your own wallet, or having a higher fidelity in the control that you have when you use a client deal broker or a client deal making tool on the network, at that stage, supporting something like this becomes really interesting, because the client now only uses one tool as opposed to needing to use the tool that they're choosing to make deals, and also separately needing to go to GitHub or needing to go to the Fil Plus app to go and get data cap from a different notary and educate them about what they're doing. And so that is my understanding of this. I think it's a very pertinent thing. I think in general, we have to start thinking in this way, where data cap can be allocated in different stages of the process, or via different stakeholders that have different levels of engagement with that path, so that it stays efficient, so that it like positively impacts the client onboarding experience, and in general keeps the network at its most productive. Galen Hand.
Yeah, I would also say that we have a notary with glyph and infinite scroll that functions. They are a notary that follows a set of rules and runs a project, right? They use a slightly different process, and all of that went into their application and met the same like rubric criteria, but functions kind of in a different path as a notary to award data cap to a client address. And so there are some other examples where things like this already currently exist. So I'd be curious to hear from the people on the call, like questions or concerns about other projects, or making, in this round of elections, allowing for more notaries, or building specific rubrics to address this kind of project.
I think it depends. I think that like part of this will involve like maturing how those services interact with their clients, as well as like building some sort of agreement on the min spec of the metadata that's tracked or the information that's collected, and in what way a client within that particular service like qualifies for this. So I don't know yet like what those individual deal broking services actually collect about their clients. Like for example, like estuary, the bar right now is not that high. But maybe for clients that would qualify for a path like this, there is a higher bar, or they have like separate tiers of clients where like oftentimes you have freemium deal making offerings, and in that there are different requirements expected. Also, like for example, like if you use a custodial wallet solution in the general crypto world, right, you have tiers of KYC that you have to do that enable different things that you're able to do, and oftentimes unlock better access, better rates, faster ability to make deals or transactions or whatever, make the market. And so I kind of view this similarly, where like we don't have to force, like this wouldn't necessarily force every service to look and feel the same, but I think it does require that there's some min spec that is agreed upon by this working group of people that are trying to solve this problem or trying to improve this problem space specifically. So I do agree with you again that there has to be some sort of standard. That standard has somehow to be vetted and agreed upon by the Filecoin Plus community as well, and should include some amount of min info that these client solutions have high confidence that they can collect, and have high confidence that they can share in some safe way with the rest of the community, so that there's some ability to continue auditing and tracking the net clients that are coming into the system and the way in which they're participating. It also has other implications in terms of storage provider like data cap distribution, for example. So a lot of these services operate based on like reputation and like SP selection based on reputation, which then leads to, I don't know what that overlap looks like, but that could lead to disproportionate allocation of deals to a smaller subset of storage providers, as opposed to like if you were to just participate in an open market. And so I think that there's there's many implementation oriented conversations that we still probably need to have before proceeding with this. But I think that it's very important to start out at least thinking about this sooner rather than later, because if we reach a point where those services are able to support like a bring your own wallet or bring your own client address offering before we have the ability to support this, then I think those clients are going to have a very, very painful ride with Filecoin Plus into the Filecoin network. Because the story of having like a custodial wallet, but then needing to go to a different service to get data cap allotted to a wallet whose keys that you've granted control to a different service is like a pretty whack story. And so, yeah, I think like Patrick raising this now, it's a very good time to start this conversation, but I completely agree with you that it's not so simple. I think we're going to have a lot of conversation on this.
Other thoughts, hands, opinions? Cool. Well, there is the governance issue there, 364. If you think of something or have questions, and I believe we'll try and have Patrick also discuss in the next governance call this afternoon as well. Maybe, we'll see. You can check that recording. So I think K-Ray, next on the agenda is open discussion, right?
Open discussion.
All right. 13 minutes. Any discussion topics that didn't make it onto this agenda? We also mentioned the notary elections cycle. Any questions around that? Happy to field those here. We've got Caitlin, if you have any FIP questions.
I got a question. I mean, there's a lot of notaries on this call, and there's a lot of clients that are like relatively well known in the system in this call as well. I'd love to just hear open opinion, open season on sort of how things are going in general with like from your perspective with the Filecoin Plus system. Any like massive pain points that you're really excited to think about and solve early in this new year? And if you stay quiet and tell me there's no problems, and obviously you're lying. Like there's always stuff we can improve. No pressure.
But we are still facing the old problems that no one is applying for our data cap. Since our data caps are hard to apply.
Yeah, I think it's great that you have a high standard. I think that we are starting to see some notaries slowly run out of data caps. So I think Tim Williams.
Yeah, and
Masaki,
also
yeah.
one other problem is that, as you know, like because of the Chinese governance regulation on the mining, so not a lot of people are, especially these traditional enterprise company, are willing to store things on Filecoin.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been like a period of like relative instability there where we don't really fully understand what will happen, and so people are a little less risk tolerant. There's also been like a set of folks that, from my understanding, like even storage providers and clients that are explicitly like looking to make deals in different regions as a result of this to ensure that they can still continue doing stuff. And so maybe we need to, like, maybe that should influence a little bit of how we think about like a regional allocation. Because right now we have specifically like a GCR region and in the way that we like select notaries, but I don't know how much, like, I don't know how pertinent that will continue to be. Like, as an example, like we only have a few notaries that are in Asia that are not in the Greater China region, and some of those are starting to run out of data cap. For example, I think Masaki, I think you're pretty close to running out of data cap, and to me, it would be more useful to have those clients come to you then, or like you work with one of those notaries to make allocations in tandem, or like operate as a effective group, as opposed to just splitting like China out on its own if general like risk affinity there is lower in the near term, I guess.
Yeah, sounds good. Because as you know, like because of the Chinese regulation and some miners in China, they are like moving to other countries nearby, and like so some but some they move to like Hong Kong, which is still GCR, but some move to like Korea and Singapore. Yeah, and I think we might help them or let other notaries to refer their clients to us, and then we can like work together.
Yeah. So I think like in general, like this idea of like groups of notaries working together is something that like I've been pretty enamored by recently, and so I was thinking about formalizing that thinking a little bit and just starting a discussion on it, where like it puts us more in the direction of like useful working groups that can share resources and ideas, similar to some thoughts we had like closer to the end, like November 2021, where we're talking about like inspiration from DAOs and how we structure like Fil Plus as a governance body. And I definitely think this is a pretty interesting direction to go in, right? Where instead of holding an individual notary accountable, already in the LDN process, we need 2 notaries every time. Why aren't we instead holding groups of notaries accountable that can be grouped either based on region, country, or expertise, and like data cap availability, and have people like, instead of a client having to pick a notary, we assign based on like knowledge that we have about a client application. And I think that could be a much better user experience overall.
Agree.
Any other ideas that people have, or just thoughts floating in their heads that would be nice to chat about for a few minutes? Fabri, do you want to give people a sneak peek on your any interesting things that you want to share that you're working on? Or for now, you want to keep it under wraps so you make some more progress?
What was the last chapter you arrived, guys? Deep told you about the new stuff?
I don't think they know that much about the log stuff, for example. Might be cool to show off.
Yeah. So we implemented in the Fil Plus app a section where you can see the logs regarding your issue, your GitHub issue. For example, right now, if you go to this, where's the chat? Okay. you go here, you can input the issue number in the search bar, then hit on search logs, and you will see what's happening on the issue. Sorry. So maybe I can share the screen. Oh, no, okay, you are there. So if you, for example, put issue number 162, you can see that, like, now I just, yeah, Galen just commented the issue. So this is useful because maybe sometimes when you don't know what's going on, why certain behavior is not triggered in GitHub, you just can have a look to the logs and maybe have a better understanding of what happening. And this is helping me, can help you occasionally. Notaries can help the governance team. And yeah, so this is one, for me, this is one good thing. It's useful also to make this thing more open to everybody, because before the only one who could see the logs was me. So yeah, next.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Next things are coming, so stay tuned.
Nice. Thanks, Fabri. I think the logs thing is super helpful. It's personally helped me debug stuff without bothering people. And I also think one super underrated feature is that it's scrapable for timestamps, which then means for those of you working on interesting data analysis tools or working on general dashboarding, or have ideas for things that we can do to improve the general tracking of performance of the system, you can now check on a per client or per issue basis, like what the actual Filecoin Plus experience has been like for them, where the bottlenecks are, what's stopping them from succeeding, where automation is helping and where automation is not helping enough. And so I'm excited to continue pursuing more transparency on this front and sharing this out as a resource. And so really great work from Fabri and the team working on the app. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Deep. Guys, if you have any feedback, any suggestion on how we can improve the flow, or even the app, the logs, please feel free to hit me in Slack. Or just, you can also open a discussion here. It will be very, very appreciated. So yeah.
That's any other general ideas, thoughts, suggestions, fun stories from vacation, inspiration for 2022? Anya, you're laughing at me. You got nothing?
I was sick for like from Christmas till New Year's.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you're feeling better now.
I do.
Damn. Fabri, feel better? Or I guess hopefully you are already.
Yeah, I feel better already.
It's because you're back at work and it's so exciting.
Yeah.
Well, deep, Galen, I think
Faye.
that I would. Oh,
sorry. Never
I was
mind.
just going to say, we have those 33 issues and the one we posted in Slack. So if we do end this call a minute or two early and you have that Slack link, I'll post it one more time. We did need a signature on quite a few of these. So it's the large data set number 167, just sharing that issue right here. So if we end 1 minute early, you can come here and sign that. Huge, greatly requested.
Thanks for the chat, Carrie. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, Good afternoon, good evening. This is the second call of the January 11th Notary Governance meeting today. And welcome. We're going to be walking you through an updated deck and flow. Now, before we say that, this is the abridged version, right? If you're curious for the full version, just rewind your YouTube a few minutes. And the first one from this morning has a majority of the content as we go through this. So today's agenda will be the same that we followed this morning. Introductions for anyone new, which we don't have on the call, the metrics, a brief summary of the notary activity that we see, the open issues, and any discussions that the community may have. And Charles, feel free, because this is very much for you as needed. But so a warm introduction. Since we covered this in the morning session, we're going to let you watch that, viewers at home. Charles, since you know us very well, we'll just wave to you politely and say continue to use us as you need us. Since this isn't your first time on the call, Charles, and anyone watching this at home, we won't spend any time on new introductions.
We actually do have somebody new on the call today.
Oh my goodness, we do.
Steph, is the Wi-Fi working well enough for you to?
Oh, you want me to do? So yes, I'm Stefan Magdalensky. I've now joined the Filecoin Foundation as a senior fellow working alongside Danny. I'll do the short version here.
Perfect. Yes, lightning round metrics. Numbers are getting better, going in the right direction. We're very happy about that. Some of the ones that we're happy, specifically, we did not see a slowdown yet over the kind of holiday and New Year. So that's great. Time overall, average time to data cap is still under 2 days. Spectacular. Our average time to our first response from a notary is still around 5 days. So that's kind of a thing that we really want to be looking at with this next round of notary elections, and sort of the next iteration of the notary process is how do we unblock clients faster to get them to data cap, even if it's a smaller amount to get started. And then looking at sort of the total amount of data cap that has gone to clients, not a significant amount going directly to the clients, but a fun statistic. Let me just pull it up so I get the number right. We updated our interplanetary dashboard, and now the total data stored through Filecoin Plus overall, we're seeing 7.26 petabytes. So 7.25 petabytes of Filecoin Plus verified data. So very excited for that number to keep growing with the network. As you're watching this, if you have questions about these dashboards, we have a public Slack channel for the Filecoin Plus dashboards. People can join, ask clarifying questions about how something is calculated. We now have 4 different dashboards that we pull from, so would love to get some more communication happening there. That's our high-level statistics. K-Ray.
Yeah, thanks, Galen. If you took anything from this slide, it was this. What we're looking at is what are some of the successful metrics of notaries and how are we looking at building that into the leaderboard? So huge props to those of you on this list that are just continuing to crush it. We have a lot of open issues right now, 34 direct applications and 33 LDNs. So we're going to be kind of reaching out. You might see some pings come through. We're working on some different tooling to kind of reach out. But to you notaries, thank you so much for the continued work, and goodness gracious, there was a lot that came through. So we're still burning through it. Really appreciate it. And we'll be looking. And as a quick plug, that leaderboard is coming along nicely. We're interviewing candidates. We hope to get started to work on that very quickly. So you'll be seeing this in a very clean, presentable form, probably in the next couple of weeks as we iterate. With that, the notary elections. So this is also coming up rapid fire from the morning. If you have any input on this, you're going to see a GitHub repo come through asking for input. The input that we're specifically looking for is time on the dates. Does this work for you? We took a soft poll in the morning and this was all thumbs up. If you're watching this recorded video and this timeline looks horrendous, feel free to comment in the GitHub repo or let us know on Slack. We're looking for your feedback. but this will be the time where if you're keen to join the process, this is your first time watching, you've never been involved before, and you wanted to kind of really take a stand and really get involved, the application to apply for the notary governance would be the place to really dive into it. So looking forward to seeing those. If you have input, please let us know on the repo that's going to come.
This looks like my slide.
Yeah,
hey, Charles. Thanks. Charles, we've met before, but it's been a little while. So my name is Caitlin. I work at the Filecoin Foundation, and I'm the TPM for all of the FIPs. Right now, we're preparing for the upgrade to Filecoin version 15, which is being called OSNAP. And there are 2 FIPs that are currently open in last call status. We're gathering discussion and final feedback, hoping to incorporate both of these in that upcoming network upgrade. You'll see on the slides, I've linked to both the FIP drafts if you want to read and learn a little bit more about the specs, technical details, security audits, etc. And we also have discussion posts linked. So if you want to raise your support, your dissension, you have questions, comments, ideas, etc. As a reminder, that last call period is really a last call for community input here before it moves to accepted status, and it will be open until January 24th, which is approximately 2 weeks from today. That being said, of these 2 FIPs that are open, Snap Deals, pretty big FIP, but relatively straightforward, simply allows storage providers to take committed capacity sectors and upgrade them with client data without going through the resealing process. So the idea is that it allows storage providers to save money, save some time, and it also makes it a lot quicker for clients, especially those who are new to the network or have really, really large data sizes that they're looking to store, to quickly know that they do have those sectors ready to go and that the DL storage is active. The second FIP is data cap management, which is authored by Deep. If you'd like to tell us some more.
Yeah, so those of you that have been coming to the last couple of governance calls are pretty familiar with this already. And for those of you watching the recording, if you're confused by why we keep calling Charles out by name, it's because we've got a couple of the usual suspects on vacation this week. And so we're singling him out while he's attending this afternoon session. But yeah, the update for this one primarily is that when we were initially drafting the FIP and the conversations that we were having that's true, actually, if you can see the chat in the recording, there's still several other folks in the call. We're just here to make Charles feel special today. Too bad, Danny. On a different note, yeah, so the data cap management FIP that's up for review at the moment, that's specifically for removing data cap from a client address. So for those of you that came to the previous calls, you'll remember that the proposal that was going forward was basically requiring 2 notaries to sign a message that was then validated by a single root key holder to remove data cap from a specific address. And so that would enable us to correct for situations where a client is not using data cap or can't use data cap. Like, for example, they've lost access to keys for that address, or they've decided they don't want to proceed with that address for whatever reason, or they've changed their plans, and so that address shouldn't have any data cap associated with it and accumulate potential network risk. Or in the case that we find like misuse or abuse of data cap or the general Filecoin Plus system, and we need some way to impose a consequence on the client, this gives the option to the community to pull back both a certain amount of data cap, but also remove the verified client status from the network as a result of setting the data cap balance down to 0. And so the main difference worth highlighting here is that after conversation with the implementers in like the sync that we typically have, Kaylin, I don't know what the exact name of the meeting is, but the general one where the community of developers meets, one of the takeaways there was basically that if we are going to have a root key holder signed, instead of having an individual address tracked on the network, we should just have the root key holder multi-sig sign. And so the implications of that decision is effectively that 2 root key holders would be signing it, similar to other approvals that go through the root key holder multi-sig. So like in the case of a new notary being set up. So this is slightly more conservative than the original proposal, but it does make a little bit more sense in terms of how we use multi-sigs in the Filecoin network, and fits in a little bit better with general protocol design principles that we've been following. And so for now, for the first implementation, it'll be 2 notaries have to send a message to the network that has specific parameters that include the client address and the amount of data cap being removed, and then the same bits are effectively used by a proposal and an acceptance to the root key holder multi-sig that then enacts that change. And so we still get the benefits of tracking and auditing everything, ensuring that the root holder is able to understand what's happening and sign it. And we ensure that there's at least 2 notaries that are participating in agreement before proceeding to remove data cap from a client. So yeah, looking forward to getting this implemented. Really excited. Timeline is great for us with the elections coming up and a bunch of other changes that we've all been talking about in the Filecoin Plus system. And so it'd be great to have this lever as we continue to try new things and operate at a higher order of magnitude as we have than we have in the past, at least. Thanks, Caitlin.
Thank you, Deep. Yep. So again, these are both proposals that have been worked on for weeks now in Deep's context, and for snap deals, it's been several months. So Charles, I don't think either of these are going to be particularly new to you, but if you or anyone else would like to weigh in, Danny, Galen, etc. Again, we have at least 2 more weeks until we move these to accepted status.
So I do have one question about the snap deals one that is probably worth just flagging for now. For those of you watching the recording as well, just worth thinking about if we were to make deals that are verified deals using snap deals. I think that we're soon going to get into the conversation of like deal renewal as a result of this, because the life term on that snap deal, I think, is constrained by like the initial life of the sector, which could be shorter than if you were to make a net new deal. And so I think there's going to be more interesting math happening behind like the willingness of a storage provider to use liquid Filecoin on collateral for like a snap deal based Filecoin Plus deal versus a net new deal to the network. And so I think there'll be, in some ways, it's actually better and easier and requires less longer term lockup and stuff. And in other ways, you might prefer higher risk but higher reward over a longer period of time. And so I think there are going to be some interesting consequences to having this as an option. Of course, there's no direct implications or changes as a result of this, but it does yield some interesting like ROI for clients and SPs participating in Filecoin Plus alike.
Yeah, that is a great point. Just to point out, I am pretty positive that the Snapdeal spec does also confirm that you can obviously extend sector lifetime, even if it is a snap deal itself. So there is some control over the longevity of a sector in total, but you're right that it's not going to be as long as if you had an entirely new sector that was being sealed for the first time.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that in general, there was also some thinking in the FIP discussion, at least, like I don't think it's in the draft because it wouldn't make sense, but at least on the discussion on like limits to how far you can extend it and then what happens once it's close to expiring, like further extensions. And I think as we continue to discuss that stuff, which will probably happen in the coming months, I think we should plug back into this call and loop in some of the folks who are in the Filecoin Plus community that are interested in having those conversations.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, my turn. Allocation step increase. This is so far has been a very non-controversial proposal. It's been discussed a number of times. It does not need to be a FIP because it is happening solely within the Filecoin Plus realm of influence, and it's not really a protocol change. We are just proposing adding 2 additional steps to our large data set allocation calculation. New large data set clients will still start with the first smaller allocation rate of either 5% total or 50% weekly. All that we're doing is proposing adding to be able to get up to 80% total or 800% weekly. And this is really for our high volume, high throughput enterprise level clients that have demonstrated great deal making behavior and keep coming back for more allocations. So we would really like to move this basically into last call status and implement it before the next notary governance call. So please go check out this issue in the notary governance repo, add some comments if you have questions or concerns. And if we don't hear any questions or concerns, we're going to work on moving it forward, and we'll notify people in Slack and in that repo and update the READMEs when this gets implemented. It'll be a very low technical lift change to a subsequent allocation bot. So going to pause just for like 5 seconds and see if the notary on the call, Charles, and Danny. Just
That's
I
cruel.
mean,
That's cruel.
There's 8 people on the call and 5 of them are from the foundation. We gotta keep each other on our toes.
I am still a notary. I am objective and I have opinions.
Yeah, actually, like for the data cap allocation, what's happening recently, because of the Selena Restore project, I feel like lots of people are trying to find the notary to become get a lot of requests. Maybe it's because of Christmas vacation time. I think after vacation it will be better. Even myself, I have difficulty to get people signature for me. Another thing, we need to run it really fast. Each time we need 2 notaries, and then the first time you need 2, the second time you need another 2. Well, I doubt that we don't really have so many notary available after the 3 or 4th round. I really doubt that. Sometimes I'm really scared. This time I'm gonna get a notaries, and also we notice that some notaries are not so active. It's just some rumors, but the information for you guys, in case you're interested, just consider it as rumors. They said that some Chinese, not Chinese notary, some notary in China, due to the political reason or governance reason, they don't really want to sign a lot. This is the information I get from them. So we maybe have reduced of capacity of notaries who can sign the data cap. Yeah, just something I know.
Just a quick clarifying thing with the 2 notaries for large data sets. It's 2 notaries for an allocation, and then for the second allocation, we want 2 different notaries. For the third allocation, it could be the same 2 notaries from allocation number 1. So it is possible that a large data set client forms a relationship of diligence and communication with 4 notaries and rotates through those 4. We just want to have some more eyes on these client applications. So it is not that you have to have 2 different ones for number 3, then 2 totally different ones for number 4, et cetera, because I agree, some notaries don't, want to engage in the large data set process for one reason or another. Also, the other thing that I appreciate the call outs that you were bringing up, and we are hopeful that with this next round of elections, we will increase the number of notaries overall, which can also help address some of the concerns. But yeah, good points. Danny had a hand. Danny.
I did. I have an opinion. So actually, it was a question. I always appreciate the statistics you folks are collecting. So are we going to, there'll be some time between this happening and the new notaries coming on board, right? Because I think there are two factors here, and the reason why I mentioned this is I was thinking they're going. I wonder if having more notaries is going to have this go faster, because of course there'll be more people around. Or something I definitely feel is that sometimes there's a little bit of a dilution of responsibility, and specifically. And specifically, I mean, I'm always a little bit hesitant to sign off on mainland China requests, just because it's pretty hard for me to do the diligence from where I'm at. So I was thinking, okay, we should try and work out how to separate the 2 effects, both of this improvement and having more notaries in general. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing to call out is when we finish the election cycle, any new notaries wouldn't be on the existing multisigs. And so we will need to determine, do we create new multisigs with all of the new notaries, or do we adjust the process in some other way? But there is a technical question here, around when we finish this election cycle, we will have new addresses. How do we handle that?
Did I see someone? Yeah. Did I see someone who say that they were a notary that just wasn't on one of the multisigs?
There was a notary.
That was a bug.
There was a notary whose address changed, and the address that was put on the multi-sig was an address that they were no longer using. So their current address was not on a subset of multi-sigs. That has now been corrected. You're not wrong.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, Galen, I see like you are really working really hard, because I saw like every day I get a lot of messages say like you're working on asking them due diligence. Honestly, lots of I don't really want to ask them. Sometimes like I'm showing like too picky, because when I ask like I said your website is not accessible, your data like looks a little bit fishy, and your website sometimes like just have a website, one page not really one page, several image website, and claim that they're doing a big business. It's really hard to convince me like it really owns those data. I don't know where did that come from, and then I don't know what entity behind the business.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of like having multiple eyes do this diligence, because some people are going to look at it and be like, I have my spidey senses tingling, like this seems a little suspicious and lightweight on what they're showing me, and I want to ask for more. And other people may have a relationship with that person, or understand that company, or understand the space, or just have another way, that they're doing the diligence that gives them confidence. So I agree that it has been keeping me very busy trying to do this like first round of diligence on some of these. And we are getting, I think, as we said in the previous call, we're getting something like 2 per day almost. So it's accelerating. I don't know where deep is on my screen.
I'd like to have my hand up. So one thing, Charles, that you brought up that I wanted to address as well was that this allocation step increase has not been in reaction to like latency that we've seen, as much as I think it's a reaction to realizing that as we get more and more serious enterprise use cases wanting large scale like data cap allocations over time, it's unrealistic to give them a runway of like 2 weeks worth of work. Like if genuinely they're putting this and they're answering it honestly, and we say, oh yeah, like every other week you need to come and ask for stuff, that's very, very difficult to sell as like a serious like enterprise offering. And so part of this change is to say, okay, like for somebody that's proven themselves as a good client and is like likely to be trustworthy, then giving them a runway of a month or a month and a half's worth of work makes a lot more sense in terms of how they can structure their operations and how they can plan for cases in which there is an interruption. They get a much bigger runway. Hopefully that makes sense. Danny, your hand?
Yeah, so one thing I definitely noticed is that we've shifted from, or at least in my case, from the small allocations to many more in the large data allocations, and I think that makes sense. I do wonder if there's a risk of us getting kind of like overloaded with requests for large data allocations, and maybe some of them are not as legit as we would want. Some of them may be people simply overestimating how much data. I think that there's a little bit of a tendency of going, okay, well, this is, if I would rather get 1 petabyte than 200 terabytes, I might as well go through this process. My question is, do you think it makes sense or would be worth thinking about to have like a small fee attached, a Filecoin fee attached for the large data application process, just to disincentivize that kind of thing?
You mean it's like a buffet? You mean it's like a buffet? If you cannot eat your food, you will pay for that. Like a buffet.
Yeah, or just for the large one, like just a deposit or something. I don't know.
So I get where you're coming from. Personally, I think that that is a fair reaction, but I would almost say that we're probably better off instead. Like I think the pain point there is that it's like creating a lot of work, and it's creating a lot of like extra work, and we can reduce that work in ways that are safer for the system without having to create friction for the client. So I think one thing that we're specifically well, I was chatting about this actually earlier today and in the past couple of weeks as well, but formally put forth to to a discussion is probably looking at like a much higher degree of automation for LDNs, where like subsequent allocations after a certain number of like notary signatories like do not require like a notary step. We still have that opportunity to like run analysis in an automated fashion, like block a tranche from going out, and in that case bring in a human in the loop. But reducing subsequent requirement of having humans in the loop at every next tranche probably doesn't make sense and creates a lot more work. So to me, that is like more in the direction of, okay, let's like reduce the overall burden. My fear with putting additional like steps at the start of it is that we already have so much friction when it comes to like client onboarding that I'm coming at it from the angle of like trying to reduce that. However, I do think that what you're proposing is it's probably a faster way to weed out people that are trying to cheat the system. But to that, I would say maybe, I think we consider this after we get the chance to try and build like some sort of like audit-based bot or like data analysis-based bot, which we're trying to do right now, see how that pans out. And depending on whether or not that is able to track like what we consider malicious or abuse use of the system, at that stage, then consider. And in general, the concept of like client collateral is not foreign in Filecoin. Like it does exist, and we have talked about it in the past for general like deal making to have clients post collateral or contribute collateral as well to storage providers so that they can even afford taking a verified deal. And so I think all of this is like reasonable. I just think that our initial reaction should probably err on the side of like more manual work that we can make automated and like more riskier actions that we can learn from and get data from before reacting to, if that makes sense. That's like an operating philosophy, I guess.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Yeah. I would also just say like my gut reaction is like interesting idea. The people that are already like maliciously abusing the large data set process, it would be very easy for them to also abuse it in this way. If it is a storage provider, pretending to be a client to self-deal, asking them to put up some amount of collateral is not going to be a big enough threat to them versus the offset, data cap reward that they could be getting compared to a legitimate client who is already like maybe a little wary about like, what is this thing, asking them for a pay to play behind a paywall, while for some people might give them higher degree of confidence of like, this is a legitimate enterprise thing. Look, I'm having to pay for it. Others, they're going to be like, never mind, it's not worth it. I'll just keep using this other process. So I think that like the idea is really good, and this kind of like brainstorming is great. It also goes to like the ongoing question of like, what is the problem we're trying to solve? And to Deep's point of like the philosophy of, can we do more diligence up front and learn from, these different use cases to then have better tracking, fraud monitoring, and basically turn on a faucet that we can monitor, and then when something starts to happen, shut it down. I think you spent a lot of time on this one, and we have a special guest presenter to help talk about this. I think we should go forward one to hear from Deep about Slingshot Restore, because it is related to these large data sets, and then kick it to our guest.
Sure, yeah. I think I'll keep this quick. In general, like Restore is making progress. I'd say it's not as fast as I think initially we'd hope, but it's resulting in a lot of really interesting lift. In case there's anything fun you're wanting to schedule, we can chat about that after. But I did want to call out that in terms of immediate next steps, we have one pending signature and on a client that's currently blocked, issue number 167. There were two signatures pending this morning, but I think one particularly active notary in this call signed that one once, and so we just need a second one. So I'm looking at the other notary in this call. Maybe
was that Danny?
Open up 160. I think it's a certain Danny. Other than that, I also want to call out that like definitely there's a lot of people who've taken have been a little opportunistic when it comes to Restore in terms of getting data cap, like either proactively in some cases or preemptively. And then there's other people that have gotten data cap and then left the program as well. And so right now we're not seeing too much rampant abuse of that because the amounts going out in the first allocation are decidedly quite low. But I am looking forward to vetting that, and especially once we get this FIP implemented, the ability to remove data cap will probably come in handy to make sure people are getting it for the reasons that they cited. But also I want to call out that like there's an up-to-date list available. If you have any questions, if you feel like you're giving data cap to somebody that doesn't look like they're participating in Restore but claims to be, please feel free to ping me anytime or check that list async and make sure that you're you're comfortable, because that's the list that we can get behind and say, yes, like the people participating in the admin side of the program are keeping strict tabs on and ensuring that like the verified deal making that's happening through that is compliant with the general principles and policies of Filecoin Plus. It's also several other like bigger scale key takeaways that I'd love to share, but we'll probably hold that to like a future governance call once we have even more feedback. So yeah, thanks so much for all the support you've already given to the program. I think it's going to pay out lots of dividends in terms of learnings and takeaways for future Filecoin Plus clients, Filecoin Plus notaries, and Filecoin Plus service providers. Sweet. That's it, I think, unless there's any questions on that.
Okay. During this morning's call, we spent a lot of time talking about the possibilities of like second tier and how we're looking at data. I think pending anybody on the call having questions, Charles, North, Alexandria just joined, I would refer you to rewind the YouTube video. I'll bookmark it in the link so you can see it. And it was a very thorough discussion. We had a lot of miners weigh in and we had a really good feedback from the community. If you had any input that you wanted to share, this is open in the repo on ticket 364. Please give us your comments and input. Otherwise, please watch that section of the video for more additional. With that, we do have a couple of guest speakers. Deep, would you like to do introductions?
Yeah, I think we'd love to start out with Alex. Alex North joined us from the PL team. He's been doing a bunch of thinking around like crypto economics in general, and recently just posted a draft for a FIP looking at redesigning the Filecoin Plus subsidy. So Alex, we'd love to have you like just chat through it, give us a bit of an overview. This call is recorded and shared with the community as well, and so they'll have an opportunity to take this as an introduction to that topic, and we'd love to get the community plugged in.
Sure. Hi. Thanks very much, and hi everyone. Nice to see you. Yeah. So just briefly, my name is Alex. I've been an engineer on Filecoin for about 3 years, and was responsible for the actors implementation at the network launch. Although I didn't write the Filecoin Plus registry actor. I've been spending a lot of time now looking ahead to what will be possible when the Filecoin VM, the FVM, enables user programmable contracts. And it's our dream that a huge amount of innovation will be unlocked in contracts written within the Filecoin VM, including lots of innovation in storage markets and features for deals. Things like deal extension or multi-sector deals, renegotiating deals, transferring deals, deals for capacity, option markets, repair markets, all kinds of things like that. Most of those things, currently those could only be implemented by sort of built-in contracts because that's the only kind of contract we have. The FVM will, in theory, enable all of those things to be implemented by smart contract developers anywhere in the world in just the same way as other blockchain systems like Ethereum and Solana and so on, which of course we think will be a huge boost to the economic possibilities of what's possible on Filecoin, and hence the economic activity and the utility of Filecoin as a piece of Web3. Anyway, much of my work has been focused on how we can arrange our existing smart contracts so that people can write useful things on the FVM once it exists, because our current set of contracts, the built-in contracts that we launched with and have iterated from, are not open to sort of external development. If we did have the ability to write new contracts, they couldn't do anything with the storage market or the storage miner as they exist today, because they were coded. They took advantage of the simplicity of knowing that there were no user programmable contracts in order to launch a simpler thing when the network launch, and adding that flexibility was postponed till later. But that later is now, and that's been what I've been thinking about a lot recently. So a couple of things, I guess. One, I wanted to flag that this future that is coming, where I expect and hope that there will not be just one storage market actor that is the built-in storage market actor that we have today, but that many different people can write smart contracts that function as storage markets, and they can have different market features. and that can innovate on their own pace and as smart contract upgrades without requiring a network-wide consensus upgrade in order to make change. So a large part of my work has been trying to remove the special privileges, figure out ways to remove the special privileges that the built-in market actor currently has, so that other people could write markets that could be on par, that have the same access as the current market. One of those, of course, is access to verified deals. And so a future that I see coming is where multiple parties deploy storage market actors that behave, have different functionality, but want access to be able to broker verified deals. And so we're looking into ways to make this easy. So one, a future that I imagine might happen is that the Filecoin Plus Notary Committee maintain a list of sort of approved market actors, which we can maintain on chain. And approved market actors can make calls to the Filecoin Plus registry on chain and get data cap, and then earn rewards for that data cap. And so there's still it opens up the trust a little bit. Instead of trusting just one actor, we can review the code of the alternative markets, and if they implement the kind of mechanics that we believe are concordant with our vision for Filecoin Plus, then we can allow them to broker verified deals. And markets that are doing something that's too weird or that don't implement enough robustness, or don't implement I guess don't meet our. We'll need to have a way of defining what the standards are that a market should maintain in order to be eligible for Filecoin Plus deals. But then we might need some kind of review, technical and policy review process for new markets in order to whitelist them for Filecoin Plus. But then I'm working on the mechanism so that if we had that governance process, other market actors that have different functionality, most likely much better functionality than the current built-in storage market actor, can benefit from verified deals as well. Let me pause briefly there for questions. Deep also nudged us to a specific FIP that I've just proposed today that's a step towards this, but I'll pause for questions generally, and then I can briefly explain the Filecoin Plus subsidy FIP. Yeah, Danny?
Yeah, do you have any sort of even rough sort of examples of what alternative markets you could envisage? I mean, I realize that that's up to the creativity of this wider audience that will be able to make it, but I'm not quite sure what brokering data cap would where the actor sort of fits into the process that we see from the outside.
Sure. So the market actor sort of defines what the deal is, and the non-existence of a whole range of features that we might want is a function of our market actor being simple and also not designed in a particularly scalable way. So one dimension along which I see different markets would be something that has a different internal implementation. Perhaps it uses a different state representation, or perhaps it uses some kind of off-chain rollup or zero knowledge proof, or perhaps it uses anchors some stuff in another blockchain and uses a bridge. I don't know, but then adds features like a deal that can span multiple sectors, or the ability to transfer a deal, the client side of a deal from one party to another, or the ability to with the client's permission, transfer a deal from one provider to another, and enable those kind of migrations. So those features, in theory, can be implemented in the current storage market actor, but they require a lot of work, and it's likely that a bunch of them ultimately wouldn't scale unless we did essentially a complete overhaul. And rather than doing a complete overhaul, we can just allow many parties to write new ones from scratch, possibly including Protocol Labs and other core developers. With the benefit of learning from the one that we have right now. So I have a big list of features that I think would be might be desirable, but the type of difference that I'm predicting first is just different internal representations that enable certain features to be implemented efficiently.
So just to be crazy about this, like suppose that we might envisage like an act or a contract that if a particular provider is no longer proving that they are storing a kind of data, you would be able to maintain like having 5 redundant copies of the data. And what you would want is, given that that deal was originally using DataCap, for that to act as kind of a proxy for the original client or some such. You see where I'm going? I'm just like, yeah, like it can play different roles in the system.
Yeah, I don't know if that would be built in sort of the market or would be a thing that would be built on top of markets. But yeah, so those kind of high level features like automated repair, automated maintaining of replication is exactly the kind of thing that couldn't be built today. Will hopefully be much more tractable after these kind of changes.
Great, thank you.
Charles.
Yeah, actually, like during the Sneasel Restore project, we already like I was like trying to do something related to smart contract, because something like what we found that when we're doing the Sneasel Restore project, we need 5 participants, so then we can get a reward. So there are a couple of issues like in front of us, how to make a contract about sharing the revenue, because it doesn't work if they just say like, I'm the client, I get a 100% reward, and I don't give you storage providers. It doesn't work. So we need a contract. And now it's really low efficiency. First, how to share the revenue is a top issue. Secondary, once one participant quit, which means that all the other 4 people cannot get the reward, and we need to find a replacement. And there's no penalty for the participants who quit. So like we want to have something like a collateral or for participant to get the price. So you can usually just say, no, I don't want, but I can quit. I think those kind of can be part of the FAM work. And so those FAM I heard that FAM were compatible with EVM. So if we have some smart contract building with Solidity, right, it works on the FAM.
Yeah, I believe so. So I'm not deep in the FEM team, but yes, the plan is definitely to internally the implementation is a WASM VM with an EVM interpretation layer on top of it. But yes, the goal is that basically any Solidity or EVM compiled smart contract should be deployable into Filecoin with sort of might need minor changes to account for the different gas models, but ultimately aiming for very close compatibility. And so yes, exactly the same kind of things can be built. And contracts like, so you pointed to another limitation of the current market in that the client of a deal in our current market has to be like an off-chain address. It can't be a multi-sig or any other contract. So there's all kinds of flexibility like that is currently excluded, but that new market implementations could build. Yeah,
I really like if one day we can use smart contract to regulate those people's behavior, like don't quit easily, and make sure like we have a standard, transparent revenue sharing protocol online. Even can have some voting system, so people like get some kind of, if FVM can support a token, publish. So like we can use in token. Like DAO tokens, like I vote with a weight to decide like this is the money I want to put, and this is a share I want to gain. The more you put, the more shares you can gain, or even like get the revenue from the activities, challenges. It will be really interesting. I didn't make it through this time because we don't have FAM. I'm trying to using the smart contract on Poly network. It's just too complicated. People don't really want to spend so much time learning how to using the voting process.
Yeah, sure. I mean, some of these things that we would like are technically possible today if you like wrote some bridge contracts onto another blockchain and then implemented all the complicated stuff in another blockchain. But that's a huge barrier to rapid innovation. And so I think the FEM make a huge difference to that. Okay, if there's no other questions on that, I'll point out a FIP that I just proposed today, which it doesn't have a number yet, but there's a pull request in the FIPS repo, which is to rework the reward for verified deals. Very briefly, today, the mechanism for incentivizing Filecoin Plus deals is that the space that they occupy in a sector counts for 10 times as much power in the network. And the power is what determines the share of the block reward from the network. And so a sector that has lots of verified deals in it is more likely to earn block reward. This is an unfortunate coupling of two different things. The network power is really about network security and the functioning of the blockchain. And we've piggybacked the subsidizing of Filecoin Plus deals into this mechanism, which makes both of them hard to change independently. It makes a lot of these features difficult. So, for example, the feature of moving a deal from one sector to another is horrendously complex if it's a verified deal, because it changes the power of both of those sectors, which goes into consensus and changes the penalties if the sector faults, and all kinds of other things. This isn't what I would call technical debt from the implementation at mainnet launch. So my proposal is to instead have the market actor, and in the future have other market actors, explicitly account for the amount of verified deal space that each provider is providing, and for the market actor to dole out a subsidy, to dole out a reward to those providers who are maintaining verified deals. And we take that reward from the block reward just once up at the sort of the root as the block reward is calculated for each epoch of the blockchain. We split that into the consensus reward, which goes to just the raw byte power of all the miners that are securing the network, and the Filecoin Plus subsidy, which is split and paid out to the market actor or market actors in the future, who disperse it to the providers who are providing verified deals. And so this makes the fact that we are subsidizing that the network is subsidizing verified deals very explicit and direct in the flow of funds throughout the accounts. And it decouples these two things, the storage powered consensus and the subsidized storage, so that both of them can change in the future. This is another thing that is necessary to change before it's possible for anyone else to build a storage market that could possibly broker verified deals. Right now, there's a very tight coupling between the miner actor and the storage market actor, but we need the miner actor to be able to participate in many storage markets. Right with this coupling, it's very hard to do that. So that's the proposal that I've made. It ends up being sort of complex internally to unwind all this debt, but I'm very happy to answer high-level questions about it here, or of course there's full detail, and there'll be a lot of discussion, I hope, in the future, near future, in the FIPs repo against the draft. Deep hand.
Yeah, quick question for you is that the general network block reward payout happens when you do the winning post and you win a block reward. Would the Fil Plus subsidy have a similar lottery-esque construct, or would it always be a consistent amount that's paid out proportionally every epoch?
Yeah, no. This changes the deal subsidy to be not a lottery and to be paid out consistently, irrespective of block reward.
Okay.
I think it's a great improvement for small miners who very rarely win a block, because they'll be able to rely on their reward subsidy, even if they don't participate in block mining.
Okay. Cool. And then I'm assuming that we've probably done, or we might be planning to do some kind of modeling on how this would impact miners of different sizes or different relative power distributions, because I'd be curious to see what the incentive ends up being for if it does create a perverse incentive in people who want to move towards Sybils or set up more miner IDs that individually store data cap based deals differently versus put the effort into a single larger storage provider as they're currently incentivized to do. Because I don't know how
the goal is to be neutral to the aggregate incentives that a miner faces or the network faces as a whole.
Okay.
So, for example, a bunch of the complications are replicating the pledge amount and replicating the penalties, replicating the reward payout, so that a miner ends up receiving very close to the same reward in the old system versus the new system. It's just accounted for differently internally.
Nice. And then this question I know is implied in your write-up already, but I'm just going to ask for the benefit of the recording. There's no change to the way collateral works as a result of this FIP draft, correct?
There's no change to the total collateral that we required. There will be a change to how it works, in that part of the collateral will remain as it is and be posted with the storage miner. But part of the collateral that is securing the Filecoin plus subsidy will be posted with the market actor instead, and will be lost if the deal is reneged.
Okay, so I think for those of you watching this, and note to myself, it's probably worth going to look at the math or the proposed initial math behind how the collateral for the market actor is calculated, because that's probably going to be different than the simplistic 10x of regular sector ceiling collateral.
Yeah, my very next to-do item is to go and model these collateral and reward and penalty functions to demonstrate the equivalence or whatever variance there is between the old and new model. For miners with different profiles of verified deals.
Cool, thanks. I think people will be extremely interested in seeing that part, because that tends to be a big blocker today for clients. Today is finding storage providers that have the amount of liquid field required to actually onboard the amount of data they have. Is not easy.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so the goal right here is to not change anything at a macro level, but I'll of course be working with the crypto econ team to verify that that's what we want to do.
Awesome.
Alex, thanks for coming. We appreciate you taking the time. Charles posted a question in Slack. Steve, did you want to that one before we?
Yeah, it's just like several times I watched doing the LDN approval, some people, anonymous community members, usually it's a new created account, leave comments you should check this node, his data is not accessible, you should check that node, his data is not working as expected. So I'm just wondering, I do appreciate those people keep on what is they doing. So I'm wondering, do we have the tools we can easily just fetch one data? So one CID.
That's a great question. So firstly, I do have a tool that does this. I use this for Slingshot and will be using it for Slingshot Restore, where I can check for specific CIDs and try and retrieve them. So that's actually part of the DealBot functionality, which is a completely open source software piece that you can find on GitHub. I can share a link to that. But anybody is welcome to run a DealBot. Anybody is welcome to run purely retrieval-based DealBots. And if indeed retrievals are free, then this should be a zero cost thing as long as you're willing to pay for the infra to run the DealBot. So there is a way to do this. However, there's also a much more interesting and deeper conversation, Charles, happening around how to support private data, for example, or encrypted data, which has similar implications here, where effectively one of the ideas put forth by Holan was get the content stored on IPFS first, encrypted or in whatever shape it will be on Filecoin, share decryption with specific subsets of notaries that can fetch it from IPFS gateways, look at it, and then watch the same CID effectively being dealt with in the Filecoin network. So with some kind of sampling, we can assume and build trust in a client that's not able to publicly show data. But by starting to track CIDs or the flow of car files and knowing that there are indices that exist that tell us what's in those car files, we'll be able to get a lot more information about the likelihood that a client is complying with what they've claimed in their application. Similarly, with the advent and the actual shipping of indexer nodes, I think this will also become much better and easier to track, where people will have to publicly create indices of the information that they have and where they're storing it, because then we can start to build random sampling retrieval tools dedicated to Filecoin Plus, for example, where a notary can say, this client looks suspicious before we allocate next tranche or data cap, press this button or write in this thing for a bot to try and retrieve it, or something like that. And so I think this is a very pertinent question. It's a very pertinent topic. I think that we're not really in a place where I want to say, yes, we have this in a good way. We sort of have it. I think we've got to do a lot more thinking on it. And it is something we should aim for, hopefully in the next several months.